So it may have been a couple of days since I last recorded anything on this stuff. I've been mostly working, chipping away, tweaking, and nothing particularly of interest until now. It's now Monday. Hopefully they at least sent out one of my servers that I am hoping will be here this week, not next. They didn't really send me any confirmations or anything as far as shipping, tracking information and such, but the machine I have now should be coming in as a replacement for the one I have now, with the return shipping for the one I have now that I will be able to send back after I receive the replacement. And they should have been receiving the one I sent them back from a previous order today as well, or they should have anyways. It's already like 7 in the afternoon. So if I'm lucky that both of them got sent out, and I may get them both this week. But who knows? Now, in the meantime, I've kind of come across a new dilemma. I'm trying to decide how exactly to go about it, and the way I'm going about it at the moment is as follows. So, the problem. What was the problem here? Well, my thought is, if I wanted to create a server, let's say I wanted to give somebody a virtual machine with a Linux, just shell access or something so that they can do stuff on it. If I add it, it's completely visible, like the network, my internal network is visible to the machine. And that's very insecure, right? You would ideally want it to see the internet, but not the LAN. Now, if it was normal, I would have been able to be like, whatever IP address I assign to it statically on the network, I can just set firewall rules and stuff, but you can control that on the OS, so that's kind of a no-go. I'm sure this is where VLANs would have been a solution, but I don't really know shit about that, so I decided I'm going to try something slightly different. So here's my idea. I'm going to just so let's kind of relook at the topology of the network as is at the moment, because I'm not done configuring stuff, but I've got part of it working, so I'm like, hit the record button. So here we have switch 0. This is the first LAN port physical Ethernet cable coming into the machine. This is where any normal device will be put in. Any normal VM, it has internet access, and it has it through the pfsense router, which is virtualized. The second network card is the one that's connected to the modem. This one's coming in and exclusively going into pfsense. I'll just say pfsense 1. And the third cable is another LAN cable, same as this one, just this one's exclusively being given to pfsense 1 again. Now, what I did this time is I added in, and I had to do it through this vSphere client, because for some reason, only this add networking button in vSphere, not in their web client, not in vCSA, not in anything else, only when I did it through the vSphere client add network, could I add another switch that can be seen by the network adapter when I'm editing a virtual machine. I don't know why. And I haven't been able to figure it out. So there's still a huge mystery there. But I can worry about that some other day. For now, I have a solution that works, and that is vSphere client. So I made a fourth switch in this case, vSwitch 3. I assign no adapters to it. So the concept here is a isolated network. Thought being, I want a machine that goes into this switch to have internet access, but to not be able to see the local network. And so there is no adapter for this guy. It's basically a completely virtualized switch. And I made a new second pfSense machine. I factory reset it and configured a couple odds and ends. And I took the, where are we? Edit settings. This is going to be called, for the moment, pfSense 2. So the WAN, in this case, goes back to that very first switch. Same way any of the other VMs get internet access, it goes into that switch. That's where it's going to get its internet, just like any of the others over the local area network. So this interfaces and pulls an IP off pfSense 1. And then the LAN adapter for it goes into this new switch that I'm currently calling isolated network. I'm probably going to rename that or something more appropriate. But for now, that's fine. So the idea here being that pfSense 2 is integrated into the very first switch and the very last switch, and it's the only interfacing that a machine put on this switch can interface with any of the network whatsoever. Now what I did here is, as you can see, the WAN and the LAN, still using VMX and all that fun stuff, is just using a DHCP pulled address at the moment. So you can see the .1 .whatever network, it got an IP. And instead of a network like external internet IP, it just has an internal network IP instead. Because pfSense 1 is the one that has the actual IP. The LAN is now given its own subnet, the .2.1. So any machines that are part of that final switch, the new one, that would get created in there for external use or secure use or whatever the hell it would be most appropriate to call it. Calling it isolated, but that might not be the right term, since I think isolated normally implies like networking two virtual machines with no outside at all internet or anything, just completely isolated. But in my case, it's only partially. That's probably where VLANs would have been a more appropriate solution. My solution is, hey, just add another router and try and go with it from there. Because I can create as an administrator. I'm the one that controls where the machine goes as far as what switch it goes on. You can't change that if you log into the OS in any way. So it has its own subnet that's independent from the original internal network. So second network within the first network. Second network, local area network, independent of the first one, but it's getting internet from the first one. And this is probably where I'm going to have to assign it, most likely a static IP on the network and stuff like this. But at the moment, it partially works. So this is the pfSense 2's interface. If I do a 7 to ping something, let's say Google Google's DNS server there. It has internet. And I put, as you can see, this one called the VM Aome. I was trying to create a test machine, and it didn't quite work out right for what I originally wanted it to, but it was just moved in there so I can have a Windows environment to test. So here, when I did a IP config, it's just doing DHCP. It pulled the first IP the router will give it, which is on the .2 whatever subnet range, and the default gateway is the .2, and I need to change this actually to probably .3 now that I think about it, because I believe, nope, never mind. I have a Wi-Fi access point that doesn't have its own subdomain. It just takes an IP and forwards, and that's like a .1.2, not a .2.1, so it's not its own subnet, so I think it's okay. But this part works as I anticipated and expected, and it does ping out to the internet, so that's good. Now, I can't access pfSense 2 off the web client on my main machine right now, but I think the vice versa is true. In other words, it's like the worst case scenario. And we are dealing with here is this. I typed in one of my first subnet's IPs and it gave access to it. So that's not good. And I don't think I don't think I can see the subnet from this side for my real machine. .1, it doesn't see the second router from this side, nor does it see that. And I think at the moment the WAN shows us the 1.177. Oops. 168.1.177. Not even that will ping. Although my IP scanner does show it in here. So whatever. I'm not concerned with being able to access it from the internal network. I'm just fine being able to make a machine inside the second network to access and administrate it. That's fine for my purposes. But I believe I'm going to have to now figure out how to create a firewall rule that's going to prevent anything on this subdomain from being able to access stuff on the first network. And that's what I'm going to try and figure out